So sometimes in golf, it can be the simplest little thought, the simplest little feel that transforms our game and gets us hitting the ball better than ever. And that's what I'm going to share with you in today's video. So a couple of months ago, I had a golfer start with me who had had lots of coaching, said he felt he'd tried everything, but still had his weak slice, poor contact with the golf ball, and wasn't quite at his wit's end, but kind of felt like maybe golf wasn't for him anymore. Well, we gave him a little feel as to what he was doing, thinking about what his wrist was doing and what his watch actually gave him some feedback about, that transformed his game and hopefully will help take your golf to the next level. So when he first came in, he said he was kind of really struggling with his game, and I just got him to hit a few shots. And the typical shot, he set up to the ball generally pretty well, but his typical shot was very much, you might get the odd thinny one that actually got out a decent distance, but he hated the strike when it was like that, or the ones that he struck better just literally popped way out to the right. And because he'd had a lot of video analysis in his golf swing, he said he was really, really bothered about the fact that he could see that the club got thrown out that way, and he knew as he cut across the golf ball, that's what caused the slice. Now, the first thing we had to talk about was maybe the diagnosis was wrong to begin with. So yes, when we looked down the line, he was definitely working this way, and that shot was pretty typical. His path was kind of 6.5 degrees on a good strike from out to in, but the previous one we saw kind of a much bigger path, and we saw the club working even more this way into double figures. So because he was working so hard on path, I actually said to him, look, I'm going to demonstrate one where we do your path better, but are still poor with the club face, which is actually the key, and this is what you could get. And we suddenly showed him that if he managed to swing from the inside and the club face was still open, he might pick up a few yards, but he'd actually miss even further right. And like I said, this golfer had a lot of coaching. So he said, right, so we're not talking about my swing path. We're talking about how I release the golf club. And he said, but I don't really understand release. And I said, right, problem, and this might be true for a lot of you guys watching, and please comment below if that's the case. There's a huge amount of terminology thrown around in golf and about the golf swing that I don't always feel is massively helpful, because it just feels like there's an endless list of things to work on. So basically how we release the club is just how we get the club from the right side of my body to the left side of my body. Now, if you watch the best players in the world, there's 3 things that happen in their downswing to release the club. So once they get to the top, the first movement is we actually see a slight twisting of the handle. Then we actually see the club head start to move a little further away. And then actually we see a bit of rotation of the hands and forearms through the bottom. And I think a lot of golfers obsess so much about trying to twist the handle that even though they come into impact, that club face is still pointing way over to the right. So I actually said to this golfer, okay, he was wearing a watch, which I appreciate not all of you will be, but I want you to think about like the back of the wrist. And I said, I want you to just do me a practice swing slowly and show me on the way through where you feel the face of your watch would be pointing. So he made his swing, and we stopped him, and he said, well, you can see there, my watch is looking straight up to the sky. I was like, okay, so straight to the sky. If I were to hit a shot then with my watch facing the sky, let's see what I would get. And the strike felt good, and we see that club face 10 degrees open. And I said, now, the only way I can get that golf ball back to target is if I'm releasing the club that way, I've got to start swinging more here to try and get the ball to set off left to drift back. And he went, well, that describes my shots perfectly. So I said, I want you to think about that watch. And all I want you to do on the way through is I want you to try and feel that you get that watch pointing down to the ground. So he did a couple of practice swings. And as he did them, he went, that feels completely different from anything I've ever done. I said, okay, good. So you might not have tried everything, but we definitely, if we can do that. And the first shot he hit went like this. And it wasn't the perfect strike, but it was straighter. And I said to him on that one, if we look at the numbers, what do we notice? He said, well, the club face all of a sudden is only a tiny bit open and the path is less out to win. And I said, do you think there you managed to get your watch down to the ground? And he went, yeah, I felt I did. And this is where the feel and real thing becomes tough. So I said to him, right, I'm going to demonstrate if I manage to get my watch down by here, if I were to come back towards the ball, you can see how close that club face would be. So I said, I think if you manage to get your watch down to the ground, we're going to see something much more like that, where that club face is 12 degrees closed. So his first bit of feedback was, okay, so even though I felt I'd got it down, I hadn't. I said, exactly. And we want you to feel that that's the shot. We're not worried about how good that shot is for now, but can we get the club releasing correctly? So he set up, did a couple more practice swings. And he said, that just feels almost, he said, that everything's happening completely different, even here, in order to get there. So he stood up, and it wasn't quite this quick, to be honest, but probably after about 5 minutes, he managed to hit one more like this. So he got that club face really closed for him, and instantly he noticed that the path was from the inside, the club face was closed, the ball drew, which he'd never seen before, and we saw a pickup in distance, even though his speed was down. And actually his first feedback was, actually one of the things he'd been told not to do was to feel the hands and arms rolling through impact. Now, again, terminology is key. If you're somebody who delivers the club like that, you are in trouble. I don't care what people say. If you deliver the club like that, there is no chance you're hitting good golf shots. And when we spoke about the best players in the world, how they actually release the club, it might not be as exaggerated as you need to feel, but once he got that feel to getting that watch face down on the way through, even the ones he didn't do it enough, we started to see some really high quality golf shots. And what I loved with it, always get this with golfers when it's face to face, is he felt there was less effort, the ball was going more accurately and the ball was going further. And all the best players in the world might do it slightly differently, but there's similarities to how they deliver the club. And what he was doing was so different to any of those players. So once we got him doing those, and he managed to really exaggerate a few in practice, and he managed to do a couple which was super impressive, that he was getting the club face almost 15 degrees closed. And I know you might be watching this video saying, right, if I slice the ball, why do I want to see a shot like that? Well, if you can over-exaggerate a feel, you can definitely dial back from there. But if you're one of those golfers that never gets the feel at all, it's almost impossible to change what you do. Now think about that. If you're not willing to over-exaggerate, it's almost impossible to make the change. And if you keep doing the same thing every time, remarkably, you get the same results. So over the weeks, what we've worked on with him is how exaggerated he wants that watch to feel. So initially we wanted him to feel that that watch on the way through was down to the ground. Now, when he swings, he says he feels like the watch just looks directly behind him. And it is super impressive to watch him. He can now stand up, aim slightly right, focus on that watch face, and start turning the ball from right to left. He's hitting the ball further than ever. And it is quite interesting because for the first couple of weeks, even though we were working on this feel through impact, he kept sending me videos of this. And he was saying how he noticed there was less of this happening, but probably in the last 4 weeks, he hasn't sent me a single video about path because he knows it's all about that club face and that ability to stand up there and do the amount he needs with this feel to just stand up and hit the best shots he's ever hit. Great distance, great accuracy, but most importantly, he's able to do it with every single club in the bag. Now, the first ones I showed you at the start with the 7-iron, when that club face was 12 degrees open, there's a bit of loft here. You can imagine how destructive 3-wood, 5-wood driver was. Now he's hitting the ball further than ever, hitting clubs into greens that he never thought possible, and those scores have come tumbling down. So remember, sometimes we don't have to be working on dramatic and complicated things. Sometimes just very simple, thinking about if you are playing in a watch or just the back of that kind of forearm, what position you're in on the way through makes your subconscious change what you do in the downswing, deliver the club better, and get you hitting, just like this golfer, the best shots you've ever hit.